have prepared a budget for next year. This is us returning to school as normal. That's what we're all hoping for in the fall. This is based on our pre-COVID budget. So I'm going from this year's budget to next year's budget, and I'll explain that as we go further. So I always start with how many students do we have out of district? Currently this year we have 15. Next year we're anticipating 13. Hopefully 2 students will be graduating. I do have one that wants to graduate next January and another one that they're both out of district that would like to graduate next January. But that's all going to determine, be determined on their work. But that we definitely have 2 graduating, which will allow us to go down to 13 students out of district next year. So we are finding less and less students are going out of district and more are staying within our district, which is great because our programs are able to sustain the students we have within district. Majority of our students that are out of district are multiply disabled, and we don't have enough in a certain cohort to make a program within district. So it's going to be hard to bring all of those students back, but we're slowly bringing students back a little bit at a time, which is very exciting for us. Next. So right now, if we look at a 3-year trend, and it's hard for 21-22 to really talk about that year, but let's start with 19-20. So 19-20, we knew we had 100 K-5. We knew in 2021 that we started, that we currently have 131 K-5. Next year, it's going to be very hard to determine where we are. We have at least 40 CPSE kids. That's currently now. That doesn't mean between now and June, we won't get another 10 to 15 students classified as CPSE students coming in. We don't know how many of them will come into program and how many of them will come in as related service or how many will come in as declassified. Due to the fact of COVID, most of these students haven't had any related services or any services of program due to parents not taking advantage of teletherapies, and therapies are still not going into the homes. They're slowly opening. We did have a BOCES meeting about 2 weeks ago where BOCES shared, and our state representative, our school regional officer also shared with us that some of our community-based preschools may be going out of business, and districts will be responsible for implementing the IEPs in the 21-22 school year. So it's kind of scary for us because that's a lot of kids and a lot of IEPs when we think about 3 to 5 year olds. And it's a lot of work with a lot less reimbursement than what our teachers are used to being paid and what we're used to paying people. So, and the reimbursement for the state is very little. That being said, we're talking about 140 students, and it could be anywhere up to 160, depending on where students are when they come in. However, several of our families are saying they're probably not going to send their students to kindergarten. They're going to quote unquote redshirt them and keep them out another year. If they do that, then students won't have services because if they don't continue through a program, services will be discontinued and parents will have to use their own insurances. School will not be responsible for them. Right now, I know 3 to 5 families that are not sending their students to kindergarten. We haven't looked at that in this number right now due to the fact that we want to make sure it's guaranteed. We still keep them on our list just to plan. We'll know better as the week after February break, we have set up with the Hendrick Hudson Free Library to do some screenings of students. So we have set up with at least 15 to 17 parents to bring their families in, and our related service people, as well as our teachers, will be going to the Hen Hud Free Library. We've reserved rooms to do some assessments, to do some screenings, so we can at least know where these kids are, and we'll get some eyes on them and we'll get some hands on them. As you can see, the trend from 6 to 8, of course, is going up. It doesn't go up as dramatically as the K to 5, but it is increasing a little. And same to 9 to 12. So we're looking anywhere from the 3-year span of 297 up to at least 400 students, depending on where our CPSE students fall into play at that point. Any questions on that? Yes.
Alex?
Hi. Yep. So I haven't seen the data prior to 2019, but just looking at it, it seems like the trend is seems significant. Is it not significant? Is it just that I don't have the background knowledge? But
well, your K to 5 really does look a lot. It is significant. Your 6 to 8 and your 9 to 12 really isn't significant because you had large pockets of kids. So you had a large group graduate last year and then a smaller group come in, but then you'll have a large group come in. the following year. So it really depends on what band they're in. So the K-5 though is huge for us. More and more kids, but you have to remember this last year we had 32 kids move in, majority of them were elementary, and they came with IEPs. And COVID has really pushed us to a point of where we're really trying to educate families on, we don't go right to classification or 504. We're going to the RTI, and it's hard if you're choosing to keep your child remote, if we can evaluate them to really say there is a disability or there's not, because they are remote. So K-5 is a large group because you're going for anywhere from 100 to 140. But again, those are estimated numbers until we know really where our CPSE kids are. Because I could have told you last year, actually, I think it was in 19, we had 60 CPSE kids. Of those 60, only 15 came in with services that needed a program. The others were related services and went to building level.
Okay. So it's just
really, COVID is really hurting us, and it's hurting because the CPSE kids, if they don't go to a program, sometimes the providers go into the home, and parents are really, really scared about COVID.
okay. And I guess you'll talk about how this would impact the budget in the next couple of slides, whether we're at the lower end or the top end.
I will.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Yes, Lori.
Devil's advocate, and I'm sorry to say this, do we, in general, how do I want to say this?
Provide?
No, because I think we do an excellent job.
Okay.
I think we're among the top, I have to tell you.
I agree.
Do we over-diagnose in general, not just us? But do you think there are a lot of cases? Because like, you're right, this is a lot of kids. Are we finding that parents are saying, oh, my kid is this, or my kid is this? Like, are we going a little crazy, or
can I answer
that?
that?
Saying it nice. I don't mean
No, I
to,
know what
God
you're
forbid
saying.
these children need help, but you know what I mean.
Can I answer that in a couple slides? Remember
Yeah.
that in a couple slides, because that's going to help when we get to the budget piece. Okay. Okay. The next slide, please, Greg. So this is very tiny, and I'm sorry for those people that are having trouble seeing it, but there's a lot of information on this slide. It's a lot about programming. I do a lot of different things falling under the PPS. So I do tutoring, I do nursing services, I do the equipment. I try to help the buildings buy stuff for the special ed classrooms. I try to buy whatever we need for the students. That's really where it falls. All the OT, PT stuff falls under my budget. So I really want you to see this. So a few things that I will tell you is that you are going to see that the teachers' salaries have gone up by 5%, but have they really gone up by 5%? The answer is yes, because we had to add 2 new teachers due to COVID this year. We have not reduced any teachers in this budget as of yet, because I needed to add a new speech therapist, because we have so many students that moved in. I need another speech therapist next year to actually provide for what we need. So there's no reduction in the teachers as of yet. That doesn't mean it won't happen as we move further down the line. We are able to reduce a lot of aides and assistants based on kids' IEPs as we move forward to the next year, because we already know we're reducing those services on the IEPs. We're slowly taking those services and giving them less and less throughout the year, working with the families and the classroom teachers. So we know eventually they're not going to be on the IEPs once June comes. So we've seen a reduction there. A lot of my lines have stayed zero for the last 2 to 3 years. I haven't had to increase them because we've been able to get what teachers needs equipment wise, supply wise, working in collaboration with the school principals. So our teachers, our related service people, our mental health people, they've gotten what they've needed. If they haven't been able to get it through the school, I find a way to get it for them within my budget. The lines that you're going to see the decrease in is where we send kids out of district. So we know kids are graduating, but we always have to keep that special spot, a few extra dollars in case we get 2 more kids that come in that need to go out of district, or we get a kid that moves from the middle school to the high school and just can't handle it, and I don't have a program. We have to be budget. We have to be ready to go. BOCES goes up every year if we want it to or not. It's just something that happens. And as I had said before, if we have multiple disabled students, we don't have the programs in district and we don't have the means to create them. If we have 3 or 4 kids in a cohort, that might be something we can do, collaborate with other districts, get some tuitions. That's another whole story. So when we think about all of this that's happening, we then have to say, how much is it, BOCES? I just flat out ask them, what percentage are you charging me next year? It helps me budget. I don't want to know how much each program is. Just give me an overall percentage. So that's how we do that. Transportation goes up. If we're sending kids to Northern Westchester to Southern Westchester, we have to find different routes everywhere. Liz charges me, and it's all aidable though. So that'll be on another slide that I show you. We are getting aid back on that. So that does help us. But to answer Lori's question, as far as are we over servicing them? It's a very interesting conversation. Providing too much.
That's not what I mean.
Okay. Go ahead.
I
Providing
think the services we give are absolutely like,
yes.
They have to have what I'm saying, are we over diagnosing?
Oh, well, we don't diagnose, remember?
You know what I mean? I'm using wrong words.
Over classifying. Are we over classifying? That's the word. I will say.
I don't mean just us. I mean in general.
In general, I can't speak. I can speak to us. I know we've really asked parents to provide us with the documentation. We do ask. Margaret and I, in conjunction, have been working with buildings for the RTI process. I have an intern right now, Chris Marino. He's an elementary teacher going for his admin degree. And part of his admin degree is to do K-5 RTI to look at our process. So RTI, for those that don't know it, is the response to interventions. There's 3 levels of response. And the first is your classroom teacher doing some basic reteaching in the classroom. Then you have your level 2, your level 3. And then we start talking about, is special education needed? But there's a lot in place before you can get there. So to answer your question, Lori, yes and no, but it really depends on what we're talking about. I think sometimes in society right now with COVID, I think we're all so nervous about our child not learning because we're remote, and I have to be remote because my parents live with me, or I have a young child that we have to be remote, and parents get nervous because their child can't attend. I can't attend to the computer 6 hours a day. So, there's times where Joe will say to me, do you want to do it on the phone or computer? I'm like, the phone, please, because the computer is just too much sometimes. So you really have to think about that. So as a society, probably because of COVID. As a general, I think we're really good at saying, yes, you get services, and no, you don't need the services because you're accessing the curriculum. I know I've been the bad guy this year at least 3 meetings saying, you are accessing the curriculum. I understand you're stressed. How can we help you? Let's get you some building level counseling. From there, we'll get you some outside counseling. We'll get you to the right people. But I think that's one thing that I can't speak to general, but I can just speak to COVID terms. COVID, I think we're all stressed right now.
Can I ask a question a different way, Lisa?
Absolutely.
Do we think that maybe parents are better educated and have more awareness, and maybe the fact that they're with their children more now during COVID, that maybe they're able to recognize the needs a little bit more, and that's why the numbers are going up?
It could definitely be that, but I'm also seeing parents that are feeling that their child can't attend. And again, I'm going to refer to the computer. If I'm on the computer this much, I can't attend. There's only so much you can. And then the anxiety that the computer is creating, because it's immediate, right? It's that immediate gratification, or it's that immediate notice that you have an assignment due.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden that anxiety builds up in the kids, and they haven't had that. Like when you leave period 1, you go to period 2 and you write down your homework. It's due in 2 days. You go to period 2. You don't have that same anxiety because you forgot period 1 already. You already wrote it in your planner, or you put it in your notebook, or you put it on your phone. Now it's going from one to the other to the other. There is no get up and move and talk to your friends break, right?
Yeah.
So that anxiety is always there.
I kind of feel like the numbers are lower than I expected in the increase.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I would have thought, given everything going on, that you would have had a much higher number.
I'm not saying that we're not having higher referrals. That's not what I'm saying. But as far as do they fit the regulation requirements, that's a different story.
Right. Okay.
I can tell you that I've personally run, before Mr. Matera got here, I ran at least 3 or 4 initials that I know I did not classify and or give a 504 plan because they were accessing the curriculum. We just needed to do some building level supports for them.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
You got to look at the regulations and the definitions for the 504 accommodation plans.
Right.
It's very, very difficult at this time for all of us.
Yeah.
So where I was going to go with this is really our service piece of it. I think is, I'm going to go off what Lori said. We have amazing services here. What we do really, really well is support our families and our students. What we now need to practice is how do we take that and help our juniors and seniors become more independent? Because I'm finding as our juniors and seniors, and this is one of our indicators next year, go off to college, they're not really doing a lot because they're used to that ICT model all the time. So this year we started the indirect consultant teacher model, or excuse me, the consultant teacher model in English 12, and we'll be starting it in the middle school for social studies and science in 7th and 8th grade. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. 8th grade science, though, will be in ICT because it is a Regents level class. So we're starting some independence as they start to transition. When they hit 9th and 10th grade, it's such a transition year and it's such a new year for kids. We aren't going to go to the indirect yet. It's going to be more juniors and seniors, but we're working on it. And next year will be the introductory piece to that. So I know Mr. Matera ran his first middle school meetings today, and it went over well with the parents. So we're just going to continue on that route, see how that goes. But we really have to start getting, our next goal needs to be, how do we make our kids a little bit more independent as they prep for high school, or college and or the workforce and or a vocational school, wherever they plan on going. So that's our next level of special ed. Lisa.
Yeah, you're using some terminology that I'm not familiar with. And I was just wondering if you could help me understand that when you're talking about direct teaching model, what is that? Can you?
So part of the least restrictive environment. So resource room, of course, is the most is the least restrictive, because resource room kids go there like during a study hall period, right? So that they're not removed from the regular classroom. So indirect consultant teacher means that they can work 120 minutes a week with the classroom teacher. They could, if they have time in their schedule, which we are building into the middle school schedule, they have time to go into the classroom, see how the child's doing. They modify the test, they modify the classroom work, they may modify homework, they may modify a reading. So that's what the indirect is. A direct consultant, they could go into the classroom like every other day, as long as it's 120 minutes a week. So that's what those two phrases mean, indirect and direct. So indirect doesn't mean they're always working with the student. Direct means you're working with the student. The other option you have with indirect is you can actually use a really cool model that Lori will know, because Elmsford uses it quite well, is they have a teaching assistant and a teacher. So they switch. So Monday is the teacher, Tuesday is teaching assistant, Wednesday is the teacher, Thursday is the teaching assistant. So it's an every other day thing. So there's many models to look out there, and they're all successful. We're going to find out which works best for our district and our kids.
Thank you. That really helps a lot.
If I'm using, please stop my terminology, because it's such second nature to me and I'm just so used to doing it. So, all right, next. So this is where we're going next year. We're really looking at the direct and indirect consultant teacher at the middle school and high school. The implementation. So DBT has been very successful. We kicked it off. Obviously, it's been in the middle school and high school, but we kicked it off the elementary this year. And I have to tell you, for a team that's so new, because they are a brand new team to each other, it has just gone amazingly well. Dr. Walker and I meet probably once a month. We talk on the phone to talk about the initiatives and how each building is doing. And she has been just so excited how well the elementary is going. So the elementary will go to second year of implementation. They've really started with their groups were up and running. They were getting kids together. They were doing some touching bases with staff. Secondary has started talking to staff and teaching, especially at the middle school, teaching some of the DBT language to the staff. They're going to start doing videos and including some parents and getting it up on the website. And that's what our goal is for the secondary 6 through 12 next year, is to get some sort of implementation of parents. So parents are now hearing about this and they can now utilize this at home. We started our little 4 times a year presentations for families, those little mini sessions for an hour. This I'm hoping to do regularly once a month to throw up on the website. Parents can hear about, this is what we're doing in DBT this month. Here's a new strategy, whether it's a breathing strategy, whether it's using ice on your neck when you really have to take that time, accounting strategy, meditation, which I'm horrible at. I'm still trying to get there, but I cannot do it. Things to that nature. So that's really what we're working on. And going hand in hand with that is a consulting psychiatrist. You know, as I had said earlier, we're talking about COVID, we're talking about stress, we're talking about anxiety. I had a parent call me whatever the last day, it seems like we were in school last week, and said, listen, my daughter has OCD. She has this, she just can't fathom going back into that school. What are we going to do? How are we going to do this? So we really talked about strategies. We talked about different things that we could do to help her, but we want the psychiatrist on call for us, but we also want them to meet with our mental health team. So we're going to bring the psychiatrist. They will do virtual meetings with each one of our levels. So a middle school, a high school, and an elementary, once a month for an hour. They will meet with us. They will talk about strategies. We'll talk about specific cases with them. They will problem solve. So these are people that have had the experience, that are in the field, that work with children and adolescents. So we're really excited that BOCES has helped us find somebody that we can start utilizing. We met with them. My small team that could meet on Monday during our snow day, we got on for an hour and we were able to speak to someone from Columbia University. And they are on board with us, and we are going to start using them after February break as a trial to see how it goes and see what else we need from them. So we're very excited to bring them on board this year and really utilize them next year. So those are our goals for next year. We'll start a little early this year for our psychiatrist. Next, please. So this is where we get some money to help us pay for all of this stuff. So we have our CPSE grant was our 619, not a lot of money. I can't even tell you what the totals are for next year. I've estimated them. That's $21,000 that's used for paying for our CPSE programs and our staff, which would be our CPSE secretary pays for some of her salary. Our 611 pays for a lot of our salaries. We designate that only to salaries with some little things that we have to pay for, which is some SEDCAR money, which is some money that the state doesn't pick up that we're required to pay for. So we pay for it out of there, and some purchase services from BOCES. This year, Margaret and I teamed up for a work-based learning coordinator, which didn't happen. So I budgeted for it, and I wrote it into my grant because we could do it with special ed and gen ed kids as a mix, and it didn't happen. So I can take that rollover money, and what I think I'm going to use it for the summer is like a boot camp for our CPSE kids. So we can kind of get some testing and see where the rest of those kids are. So that's what we will utilize that money for. Our STAC money, which is our money that I talked about with reimbursement. Don't ask me what STAC is, Lisa, because I don't know. It's just the state reimbursement fund. I do know that. I work with Questar BOCES, and we give them all of our kids that go to program. We get a percentage of that back. Typically, it's about 38%. And we get that back from our state, and we're anticipated about $201,000. I know they gave me like a hint that we'll get a March payment, but they're saying they're not sure what happens after March. And it kind of shocked me. So I'm getting everything done that I can before March so we can get as much money as we can from them. Our tuition from ABC is about $710,000, almost $711,000, anticipating the same amount next year because we're not really sure how many kids we'll have. I will tell you our ABC classes, based on the students that we currently have, based on our incoming students, we will have one open slot, and that will be one slot at the middle school. The rest of our K to 12 classes will be full. We won't have any space to take any more tuition kids except for that one spot due to the number of kids we have in program already. So that's pretty full. And then we have a couple kids in our ICT or special classes in the middle school that come to us from other districts, that their tuition and their related services, that adds up to about $169,000. Any questions there? If we do go to Princeton plan, this is one thing that I shared with Joe, is that we could take our 12-1-1 classes and split them up and allow more space for tuition kids, because we do have a couple kids that do come to our 12-1-1 classes, and those are classes that most of those students will eventually get into an ICT class and hopefully just end on a track of a general diploma versus alternately assessed, like our ABC kids that will go for the credential versus a typical diploma. So that would be an option with Princeton plan if we do go that way as well. Next slide, please. So this is how we break down up our grants, and I kind of already spoke about that. So we do a lot of the purchase services really is paying for those county level and state level special ed programs. So That's how we use the money. A lot of our 611 actually supplements our special ed teachers or related, anybody that works 100% with special ed, we can put their salaries in that grant. Next, please. Any other questions? I know I answered a lot while we were talking, but are there any other questions I can answer for you?
Looks like you covered everything, Lisa. Somehow it does not surprise me that you have trouble with meditation. I
Really?
wish I had 1/4 of your energy. Yeah.
Well, I was sitting on a DBT meeting with high school, and I realized I wasn't muted, and I was doing 3 things. And someone said, I won't mention any names, but someone was clicking a pen. I'm like, no, it was my keyboard. It was me. I admit it. So
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. It was a very thorough presentation. I'm so glad we're able to service so many of our students in-house and
mhm.
not have to send them out. That's great for them because they get to know more of their community members and their, friends that live locally, things like that. And of course, the commutes are much shorter. So yeah, keep up the good work.
Thank you.